All right, today we're going to be architects, but we're not building a skyscraper. We're building a reader. We're going to dig into the real foundations of literacy, all those crucial steps that happen way before a child even reads a single word. So let's get building.
It's a pretty straightforward question, right? But the answer, well, it's a lot more interesting than you might think. And for most of us, an answer probably pops right into our heads, and it might just involve a certain famous song.
And there it is, our first big surprise. The journey to becoming a reader doesn't actually start with memorizing letters. Nope, it begins somewhere much, much more basic, in the world of pure sound.
So our very first foundational piece isn't a letter block at all. It's the ability to just listen. Before a kid can make sense of language, they first have to learn how to make sense of the world around them, just by using their ears.
What's so fascinating here is the jump that has to happen. See, we all start by just passively hearing stuff. You know, a dog barking over there, a phone ringing somewhere else. But the goal, the real leap, is active identification. Can you hear a bell and know without looking that it's a bell? That skill, telling one sound from another, is the absolute bedrock for everything that comes next. Okay, so let's grab our next block and see how this all connects. Once a child can sort of filter all those environmental sounds, they start this incredibly complex job of tuning into the most important sounds of all, human speech. They literally learn to pull the sound of language out from all the other background noise.
And that brings us to a huge concept, phonemic awareness. Now I know that sounds super technical, but don't let it fool you. All it means is the ability to hear and kind of play with the smallest individual sounds inside of words. We're not talking about letters here, just the sounds themselves, like s or t. It's a listening skill, not a reading one.
So how do you actually teach this? Well, you can see there's a really smart, methodical way to do it. First, a teacher models the pure sound, not the letter name S, but that hiss, s. Then, they use chants to make it catchy and memorable, and finally they use alliteration, so the child starts to hear that same sound popping up in different words.
For instance, a sentence like, "silly snakes slither," isn't just a fun little phrase, it's actually a powerful workout for the brain, training the ear to pick out that initial S sound again and again. That repetition is what's literally building the neural pathways a kid needs for reading. And now we get to the part where the real magic happens. This is our third block. This is where that abstract world of sound finally meets the concrete world of symbols on a page. This is the bridge.
So you start with just the pure sound, a little puff of air. The phoneme, P. It doesn't look like anything yet. It's just a sound we can make and we can hear. And then we give that sound a name and a shape. This symbol right here, the letter P, now stands for that puff of air. And this is so important to remember. The sound always comes first. The symbol comes second.
To make sure that connection really sticks, educators use a consistent playbook. They'll name the letter out loud. They'll help a child hear it right at the beginning of a word, like in pop. And they might use a song to really emphasize that P sound over and over. It's all about creating as many links as possible between what you hear and what you see.
Our last block here might look like it belongs to a totally different project, but get this, it's happening at the exact same time. While the brain is learning to decode sounds, the hands are learning to make their own marks. This is the parallel track of pre-writing. And this shows so clearly that just like listening, writing has its own step-by-step journey. It starts with just making contact, a crayon just tapping on paper. Then that turns into making intentional marks, squiggles, dots, whatever. And finally, that develops into the controlled movements needed to draw deliberate lines, which, when you think about it, are the building blocks of every single letter.
So we've laid our 4 foundational blocks. And, just like when you're building a house, if any one of these is a little shaky, it can affect the whole structure. A kid who can't tell sounds apart is going to struggle to connect them to letters. A kid who hasn't developed that motor control is going to struggle to write them.
When you lay it all out like this, the logic is perfect. It makes so much sense. You move from the biggest, broadest skill, just general listening, to the super specific skill of isolating tiny sounds. Then you build that bridge to the written letter, all while you're developing the physical skill to make those letters yourself. This right here, this is the real blueprint for how to build a reader.
Which really just leaves us with one final thought. We put so much focus and excitement on that huge milestone of a child reading their very first word. But what about celebrating the first time they identify a sound without seeing where it came from? or that first time they make a controlled, deliberate line on a piece of paper. These are the real first steps. So the question is, how can we start recognizing and celebrating them as the huge, monumental achievements that they really are?